Collision in the storm. The storm came without warning. Jake was driving alone down the forgotten highway, miles away from any city lights, with only the heavy rain and the relentless roar of thunder for company. The night sky was a chaotic swirl of black clouds ripped apart by jagged bolts of lightning. Rain hammered the windshield like a barrage of tiny missiles, blurring everything beyond the wiper's desperate swipes. He gripped the wheel tightly, his knuckles white beneath his worn gloves. Every muscle in his body was tense. The air inside the truck was thick with dampness and the smell of wet leather. Somewhere in the distance, the howl of the wind carried a strange, low sound, like a whisper or a warning. Jake had been on the road for hours, trying to put distance between himself and the town that now felt like a trap. The news was grim. Air quality plummeting, toxic storms sweeping over regions, power outages crippling entire states. No one knew why the Earth was turning hostile overnight, but rumors spread fast. Some said it was climate chaos. Others whispered of something more unnatural. As he rounded a bend, the truck's headlights caught something moving by the roadside. A figure stumbling blindly through the sheets of rain. The silhouette was fragile and trembling, clothes soaked and clinging to the body. For a moment, Jake thought it was just a desperate traveler caught out in the storm. But something about the way the figure moved was off. Too quick, too erratic. Before he could react, she suddenly lunged onto the road. The truck slammed into her with a heavy thud, jolting violently as she hit the passenger side door. Jake slammed on the brakes, heart pounding like a drum in his chest. "Jesus!" he shouted, yanking the door open. Rain flooded into the cabin, drenching him instantly. The woman collapsed against the truck, shivering uncontrollably. Her hair was dark and plastered to her pale face, eyes wide with terror and exhaustion. "Please, I need shelter," she gasped, barely audible over the storm. Jake hesitated. Something about her gaze held a wild urgency, a raw mix of fear, and something deeper, something almost desperate. He noticed the strange shimmer under the rain on her skin, a faint, bluish glow just visible at the edges. "Get in," he said, voice rough but steady. She didn't argue. Her movements were swift, but shaky as she climbed inside and slammed the door shut. Jake closed the truck's door, locking it against the storm. She sat there, drenched and trembling, but her eyes never stopped scanning the darkness outside. "What happened to you?" Jake asked, trying to keep his tone calm. The woman swallowed, hard, struggling for breath. "They're after me," she whispered. "The environment, it's killing everything. But not just the storm. It's them, the hunters." Jake frowned, his grip tightening on the wheel. "Hunters? Who?" She looked at him then, her eyes piercing through the rain-dark night. "Not from this world. They came to take me back." Jake's mind reeled. Aliens, this was crazy. But the glowing mark on her wrist told him otherwise. He leaned closer. "Your name?" "Lyra," she said. "Please, we don't have much time." He glanced in the rearview mirror. The storm wasn't just a natural disaster anymore. In the shadows, beyond the rain, strange figures moved with inhuman speed, tall, slender shapes with glowing eyes that reflected the lightning like predators hunting their prey. Jake swallowed hard, pushing his fear down. "Where do you want to go?" "The old rest stop, 12 miles ahead," Lyra replied, her voice tense. He didn't argue. The truck surged forward, tires spraying water in long arcs. The silence between them was thick, broken only by the sound of rain on metal and the crackling radio static. Jake caught fragments of emergency broadcasts, warnings about poisonous air, sudden temperature drops, disappearances. The storm felt alive, angry, like it was trying to hide something. Suddenly, Lyra reached across and grabbed his arm. Her skin was ice cold. "They're closer," she hissed. Jake checked the mirrors. Shadows moved in unnatural patterns, closing the distance fast. The hunters weren't human. Their shapes flickered and shifted like mirages in the rain. The truck sped up, headlights cutting through the storm, but the figures matched every turn, relentless. Jake's heart pounded harder. For the first time in years, he was running not from the law or the past, but from something beyond his understanding. The rest stop emerged like a ghost through the storm, a small cluster of empty buildings, faded paint peeling under the relentless rain. Jake swerved the truck to a stop beneath a flickering streetlight. Lyra pushed the door open and stepped out, water streaming from her drenched clothes. She moved with a strange grace despite her exhaustion, her eyes sharp and alert. Inside the storage shed nearby, Jake lit his flashlight. The small beam cut through thick darkness. "We have to hide," Lyra said urgently. "They don't just want me, they want to control Earth's dying breath." Jake stared at her, his mind spinning. "Control? What does that mean?" Lyra took a deep breath. "My people, my world, was destroyed by greed and war. They came here seeking refuge. But the storm, the toxic air, it's a weapon they unleashed. To cleanse this planet, to make it theirs." The words sank deep. Jake's disbelief battled with an uneasy truth. He had seen the skies turn strange, the air grow heavy and poisonous. Suddenly, the sound of metal scraping against concrete echoed from outside. "Hunters," Lyra whispered, eyes blazing. Jake moved to the window. Outside, shadowy figures advanced, their glowing eyes locking onto the shed. The storm raged on, thunder shaking the walls. Jake looked at Lyra. "What do we do now?" She smiled faintly, a dangerous gleam in her eyes. "We fight." Lightning split the sky again, illuminating. A world on the edge of destruction. Two strangers, one human, one alien, trapped together in a storm that threatened to consume everything, and the hunt had only just begun. Jake's breath fogged up the grimy window of the storage shed as he pressed his face close to the glass, eyes straining to make out the figures outside. The hunters, tall and slender with elongated limbs that twisted unnaturally under the flashing storm, were circling the building, their glowing eyes piercing the darkness like deadly searchlights. "Those things. They're not human," Jake whispered, voice barely audible over the storm. The rain pounded relentlessly and thunder rolled, as if nature itself was roaring a warning. Lyra crouched beside him, her breathing steady despite the tension. "They're my people's enforcers," she explained quietly. "Once they protected, as now they're executioners, sent to retrieve me and silence anyone who gets in their way." Jake's mind raced. "Why you? What did you do?" Lyra's eyes darkened, filled with pain and determination. "I escaped. I know their plans, how they intend to enslave this planet using the storm as a weapon. They want to force Earth's inhabitants into submission, to rewrite the rules of survival." The metal door of the shed trembled from a heavy impact. The hunters were relentless. Jake grabbed a rusty pipe from a corner and whispered, "We need a plan." Lyra nodded. "I've studied their tactics. They rely on fear, speed, and overwhelming numbers. But they have weaknesses: light, water, and confusion." Suddenly, a shrill screech shattered the tension. Outside, the hunters communicated in an eerie chorus of clicks and growls that sounded almost like a dark symphony. They began pounding the shed walls, relentless. Jake's heart pounded. "We can't stay here." Lyra scanned the shed. "There's a narrow crawl space beneath the floorboards. It leads to an old storm drain. If we can get there, it might buy us time." He pried up the loose boards, revealing the damp crawl space beneath. "Help me," he urged. Together, they squeezed into the cramped space. The air was thick with mold and earth, the cold dampness chilling Jake's skin through his jacket. The hunter's pounding grew louder, and Jake's breath hitched as the shadows flickered just outside. Crawling through the narrow tunnel, they could hear the storm muffled above, the hunters' voices fading behind them. After what felt like an eternity, the tunnel opened into a dark concrete culvert beneath the highway. Water trickled sluggishly through the channel, its surface rippling. With the storm's rainwater, Lyra helped Jake out first, then slipped in after him. The water was cold and murky, but the shelter was safer, at least for now. Jake took a deep breath, adrenaline still surging. What's the plan now? Lyra's eyes scanned the far end of the tunnel where a faint light flickered. There's an old research facility a few miles downstream. Abandoned, but still operational enough to hide. It might hold answers and weapons. Jake nodded, swallowing his fear. All right, let's move. They began wading through the water, the tunnel, stretching endlessly ahead. The sound of the storm outside was muffled but constant, like a heartbeat thumping against the metal and concrete. Suddenly, the water shifted violently. Jake froze. "What is it?" Lyra whispered. From the shadows, a hunter emerged. It's elongated. Limbs glistened with rainwater, its eyes glowing brighter in the dark. It hissed, advancing silently. Jake swung the pipe, but the creature was too fast, dodging easily. It lunged, claws scraping the concrete inches from Jake's face. Lyra screamed, grabbing a loose pipe and smashing it against the creature's skull. The hunter staggered, then vanished back into the darkness. "Run!" Lyra yelled. They sprinted through the tunnel, breath ragged, hearts pounding. The hunter's footsteps echoed behind them, relentless. At last, the tunnel opened into a dim forest clearing. Rain still fell, but the storm's fury seemed distant here. Lyra looked back. No sign of the hunter. They moved cautiously, heading toward the faint glow of the facility's broken lights. Jake wiped the rain from his face. "Who sent those things? Why are they hunting you like this?" Lyra's gaze was haunted. "Our leaders. They betrayed us to save themselves. I'm the last who remembers the truth." Jake shook his head, overwhelmed but determined. "Whatever happens, I'm with you." Inside the research facility, the air was stale and cold, but at least they were out of the storm's grip. Flickering monitors cast eerie shadows on the walls. Lyra tapped a panel, and an ancient door creaked open, revealing rows of strange equipment and dusty consoles. She moved quickly, searching for something. Jake followed, feeling the weight of their situation pressing down. Outside, the storm raged on, a reminder that Earth itself was changing, becoming a hostile place for all who lived on it. Suddenly, the lights flickered and went out. In the darkness, Lyra whispered, "They've found us." Jake's heart dropped as the faint, clicking sounds of the hunters returned, closer than ever. Secrets beneath the surface. The darkness swallowed them whole. Jake's heart hammered in his chest as the last flickers of light faded from the abandoned research facility. The storm outside screamed in fury, shaking the old building to its rusted bones. Somewhere beyond the thick walls, the hunters lurked, relentless, patient, and deadly. Lyra's breath was steady, but urgent. "We have to find the control room. There's a terminal there that still works. If I can access it, I might find a way to disable their tracking systems and maybe, just maybe, learn why they want me dead." Jake fumbled for his phone, the screen barely lighting up in the thick blackness. He pulled out a small tactical flashlight he always carried, a gift from his father, a survivalist, and clicked it on. A narrow beam cut through the shadows, illuminating the peeling paint and broken furniture of the room. "Led the way," Jake said. Lyra moved confidently, almost like she knew the place. Her footsteps were light but purposeful, gliding over broken glass and twisted wires. She stopped at a heavy steel door, half hidden behind a fallen cabinet. "This is it," she whispered. She pulled out a small glowing device from her pocket, sleek, alien in design. She pressed it against a panel beside the door. A low hum filled the air, and the door slid open with a reluctant groan. Inside, dozens of old computer consoles blinked faintly, their screens filled with static and cracked glass. The smell of dust and cold metal was overwhelming. Lyra immediately knelt at the largest terminal, her fingers flying over the alien keypad with practiced ease. Jake scanned the room nervously, the beam of the flashlight catching shadows that seemed to flicker and move just beyond the corner of his vision. Minutes stretched like hours. Suddenly, the terminal screen flashed to life. Accessing files, Lyra murmured, eyes scanning the rapidly scrolling data. Jake crouched beside her, heart racing, as strange words and images flickered on the screen. Earth, storm, mutation, alien bioweapons. This isn't just a storm, Lyra said, voice trembling. It's engineered, designed to reshape the planet's ecosystem, to eliminate life forms deemed unfit. The hunters are enforcers, part of a campaign to terraform Earth for a new species, one I can't even fully describe. Jake stared, stunned. Why? He asked. Who's behind this? Lyra's fingers trembled as she pulled up a file marked with an emblem Jake didn't recognize, a jagged star over a swirling spiral. The High Council of Kinthara, she whispered. My home world. Once proud and peaceful, now corrupted and ruthless. They see Earth as a resource, a new frontier. They'll stop at nothing to claim it. A sudden crash echoed down the hallway. Jake's eyes snapped toward the door. The hunters, Lyra said, standing quickly. They've breached the perimeter. She grabbed a compact weapon from a broken locker, unlike anything Jake had seen before, sleek with glowing edges. Ready? She asked. Jake nodded, tightening his grip on the pipe. The door exploded inward with a shower of debris. The hunters flooded the room, sleek, terrifying silhouettes, their glowing eyes locked onto Jake and Lyra. Run! Lyra shouted. They darted through the debris, ducking under hanging cables and leaping over broken furniture. Jake swung the pipe wildly, knocking one hunter off balance. Lyra fired her alien weapon, beams of blue light slicing through the air. But the hunters were relentless. One caught Jake's arm with a clawed hand, its grip like iron. He yelped, but punched the creature's face hard. Lyra grabbed Jake's hand, pulling him toward a narrow stairwell. Upstairs, she said. They scrambled up the rusted steps, burst through a hatch onto the roof. The storm had lessened, but still raged. Flashes of lightning silhouetted the distant city skyline. The hunters paused at the hatch entrance, snarling. We're not safe here, Lyra gasped. Jake's eyes darted. Around. A weather station sat nearby, its tall antenna whipping in the wind. Maybe we can use that, Jake said. Lyra nodded. Together they climbed the metal tower, rain stinging their faces. At the top, Lyra connected her device to the station's control panel. If I can send a signal, I might disrupt their communication, she said, fingers flying. Below, the hunters gathered, growling, eyes flickering with frustration. Suddenly, the weather station began to hum and spark. A pulse of energy radiated out, the storm flickering as if confused. The hunters hesitated, their movements jerky. We've got a chance, Lyra said. Jake grinned despite the fear, but just as relief washed over them, a deafening roar tore through the sky. A massive shadow loomed overhead, a monstrous alien craft, its hull pulsing with ominous energy. Lyra's eyes widened in horror. They've sent reinforcements. The ship unleashed a blast of energy, striking the weather station. Jake and Lyra were thrown violently to the ground. The hunters surged forward. Jake struggled to his feet, clutching Lyra's hand. We need to run, now. They dashed toward the city, the storm and the alien threat converging into a nightmare that threatened to consume them both. The city's hidden war. The rain hammered down in sheets as Jake and Lyra sprinted through the ruined streets, their breath ragged, lungs burning with cold air. The thunderstorm, though less violent than before, still roared like a living beast, and above them the alien ship loomed, a dark blot against the angry sky. Jake's mind raced, searching for any chance to turn this nightmare around. The city was a labyrinth of abandoned buildings and shattered dreams. Once a bustling metropolis, now a ghost town swallowed by the storm and alien war. "Where can we go?" Jake panted, glancing at Lyra. She scanned the horizon, eyes sharp beneath her sodden hair. "There's an underground resistance," she said quietly. "A group of humans and aliens who oppose the High Council's plans. They've been hiding here for months. If we can reach them, maybe they have a way to fight back," Jake finished. Lyra nodded grimly. "Come on, follow me." They darted through alleys littered with debris, shadows flickering in the flashes of lightning. Somewhere in the distance, the low thrum of alien engines echoed, a constant reminder they were being hunted. As they turned a corner, a sudden crash of metal echoed nearby. Jake froze, motioning for silence. Out of the darkness emerged a figure, wearing ragged clothes but holding a rifle that gleamed under the rain. "Who are you?" the stranger demanded, eyes wary. Jake raised his hands. "We're running from the High Council's hunters. We need help." The stranger's eyes flicked to Lyra, then back to Jake. "Lyra," she said, voice sharp. Lyra tensed. "Who are you?" "Name's Mara," the woman said, "part of the resistance." Relief mixed with suspicion as Mara nodded. "Follow me." They slipped through narrow tunnels, concealed behind a crumbled wall. The air grew cooler and drier as they descended underground. Inside the dimly lit bunker, dozens of faces, human and alien, watched them carefully. Some wore scars, others carried weapons. The tension was palpable. Jake scanned the room, heart pounding. A tall man stepped forward, his eyes piercing. "You're the one they call Lyra," he said. She nodded. "And I have information that could stop the High Council's plan to terraform Earth." The man studied her, then motioned to a holographic map flickering on the wall. "Show us," he said. Lyra connected her device, and the map expanded, showing the storm's epicenter, the alien installations, and the hunter patrols. "The storm is artificial," she explained. "It's engineered to kill and transform Earth's life forms to suit the Kintharan species. If it continues, nothing human will survive." Murmurs spread through the room. "How do we stop it?" a young man asked. Lyra's face hardened. "There's a control hub deep in the Kintharan mothership. If we destroy it, the storm's energy will collapse." Jake swallowed hard. "And how do we get there?" The leader, Mara, exchanged glances with Lyra. "We have a ship, small and fast, capable of slipping past the mothership's defenses. But the journey is deadly. We'll need everyone's strength and trust." For the first time since this nightmare began, Jake felt a spark of hope. Days passed as the resistance prepared. Jake trained with weapons, learning alien tech under Lyra's watchful eye. Bonds formed between humans and aliens alike, united by a desperate fight for survival. But trust was fragile. Whispers of betrayal and spies lurked beneath every smile. One night, as Jake lay on a cot, he heard voices from the shadows. "We can't let them destroy the storm," a harsh voice hissed. "The High Council rewards loyalty." Jake's blood ran cold. The threat wasn't just external, it was within. Lyra found him moments later, her expression grave. "We have a traitor," she said. "We must be careful." The next morning, the Resistance launched their assault. The small ship was ready, a sleek vessel glowing softly beneath the bunker lights. Jake's hands trembled as he strapped in next to Lyra. "This is it," she said, voice steady but fierce. The engines roared to life, and the ship shot upward through layers of atmosphere, piercing the raging storm. Above the clouds, the Kintharan mothership hovered like a leviathan, a massive fortress of alien metal pulsing with energy. They slipped past patrols and defenses, hearts pounding with every near miss. Finally, they landed inside the mothership's core chamber, a vast, glowing room filled with pulsating crystals controlling the storm. Lyra stepped forward, weapon ready. "This ends now." Suddenly, alarms blared. Hunter reinforcements poured in. A brutal fight erupted, laser fire flashing, bodies falling. Jake fought beside Lyra, every strike fueled by desperation. With one final burst, Lyra's weapon shattered the central crystal. The storm faltered. The mothership shuddered violently. Outside, the storm began to collapse, the thunder fading into eerie silence. But as they raced back to the ship, the floor cracked beneath them. The mothership was dying. They barely escaped as it exploded in a blinding flash. Back on Earth, the sky cleared. The storm was over, but the fight for survival had only just begun. After the storm, the sky above the city was an unfamiliar blue, clear, calm, and almost peaceful. For the first time in months, the sun pierced through the clouds, casting warm light on cracked streets and shattered buildings. But the calm was deceptive. Jake knew it was only the eye of a far greater storm, one hidden beneath the surface of the world, in the hearts of its survivors. He and Lyra sat on the roof of a collapsed skyscraper, overlooking the silent city below. The wreckage of the alien mothership still smoldered in the distance, a smoking crater marking the battlefield where they had risked everything. "I never thought Earth would look like this," Jake muttered, voice heavy with exhaustion. Lyra didn't answer immediately. Her eyes were fixed on the horizon, where the first signs of life stirred, birds returning, plants beginning to green. "It's a new beginning," she finally said, voice soft but firm. "But also a new war." Jake frowned. "What do you mean?" Lyra's gaze hardened. "The High Council may have lost this battle, but their influence runs deep. There are still factions loyal to them, both among aliens and humans, who see the storm's failure as a setback, not the end." Jake's stomach twisted. "So, even after all this, we're not safe?" "No," Lyra said bluntly. "We've made enemies, powerful enemies. They descended from the rooftop, moving through the streets that bore the scars of their fight. The resistance was gathering survivors, those who had lost everything but still held on to hope." Inside the bunker, Mara addressed the group. "We have to rebuild, yes," she said, voice echoing in the cavernous room, "but we must also prepare. The storm may be gone, but the High Council's plans for Earth are far from finished." Whispers spread, fear, determination, anger. Jake glanced at Lyra. "How do we fight an enemy we can't even see?" She smiled faintly. "With truth, with unity, and with the strength of humanity." Days passed. Jake trained harder, learning more about alien tech and warfare. He watched as humans and aliens worked side by side, forging bonds in the fires of adversity, but tensions simmered beneath the surface. One evening, Jake overheard a heated argument. "We should strike first," a voice insisted. "Show them we're not weak." "No," Mara replied calmly. "If we rush, we play into their hands." Jake stepped closer, catching fragments. Diplomacy, infiltration, gathering intelligence. It was a dangerous game. Trust was fragile. Then came the news. A hidden base had been discovered, one where High Council sympathizers were regrouping. The resistance planned a raid. Jake volunteered. "This time we hit them where it hurts," he said, eyes blazing. Lyra nodded, her expression unreadable. The night of the raid arrived. Jake and a small team moved silently through the shadows, weapons ready. Inside the base, they found something chilling. Humans and aliens working together, but not in alliance. They were preparing a new weapon, more deadly than the storm. Jake's heart pounded. "We have to stop this." A fierce battle erupted. Laser fire, explosions, desperate fighting in tight corridors. Jake fought with everything he had, driven by the thought of protecting the world he had come to love. They destroyed the weapon's core, but the base began to collapse. Trapped in a collapsing tunnel, Jake was separated from the group. Alone, wounded, and surrounded by darkness, he fought to stay conscious. Then a familiar voice echoed. "Jake!" Lyra appeared, dragging him to safety. Outside, the base exploded in a fiery blast, but the victory was bittersweet. Casualties lay scattered, friends lost in the fight. Back in the bunker, the resistance mourned and regrouped. Jake looked at Lyra, pain and determination etched on his face. "We're winning battles," he said quietly. "But the war, it feels endless." Lyra took his hand. "We fight because we must, because if we don't, Earth will belong to those who see it as a prize, not a home." Suddenly, a message crackled over the radio. "Warning, incoming ship, unknown origin." The room fell silent. Jake's heart skipped. The sky was no longer safe. The final storm, the tension in the bunker was palpable. Every eye was fixed on the communication console as the radar tracked the approaching ship. This was no ordinary craft. It moved with speed and precision, unlike anything Earth had seen before. Jake stood beside Lyra, feeling the weight of all they had endured. The storm, the battle, the loss of friends, it had all led to this moment. Mara stepped forward, voice steady but grim. "This ship could be our last chance for peace, or the final blow." The incoming transmission was cryptic but clear. "We come not as conquerors, but as observers. Earth's trial has caught our attention." The room exhaled collectively, but the relief was short-lived. Observers meant more questions, more uncertainty. Jake's mind raced. The High Council's reach extended far beyond what they'd imagined, and now a new player was entering the game. As the ship landed, a figure emerged, a tall being with calm eyes and an aura of authority. This was not a warrior, but a diplomat. "I am Varin," the alien said. "We have watched the struggle between your people and the High Council. Your resilience is remarkable." Lyra stepped forward, wary but hopeful. "What do you want?" Varin's gaze was steady. "To offer guidance and alliance. The High Council's ambitions threaten more than just Earth. If united, we can resist." Jake felt a flicker of hope. After all the bloodshed and fear, maybe there was a path to peace, but not everyone was convinced. One of the resistance leaders spoke up, voice sharp. "How do we know you're not another enemy?" Varin's eyes softened. "Trust is earned, not given. But consider this, your fight is our fight." Over the following days, Varin shared knowledge, advanced technology, insights into the High Council's weaknesses, and a vision for a future where Earth was a beacon of unity, not a battleground. Jake trained alongside new allies, learning to harness the strengths of both human ingenuity and alien wisdom. Slowly, hope grew, yet the scars of war ran deep. In quiet moments, Jake thought of the storm that had brought Lyra crashing into his life. An event so violent and terrifying. It had changed everything. He looked at her now, not just as a survivor, but as a partner in this fight for Earth's soul. One night, beneath the stars, Jake asked, "Do you think we'll ever be truly safe?" Lyra smiled softly. "Safety is an illusion, but together, we can create a world worth fighting for." The final battle loomed. With Varin's help, the Resistance launched a coordinated strike against the High Council's remaining forces. The fight was fierce, pushing both sides to their limits. In the heart of the enemy's fortress, Jake faced the High Council's leader, a being whose cold ambition had nearly destroyed Earth. Their confrontation was not just physical, but a clash of ideals. "You fight for a world that fears change," the leader sneered. "But I will shape it in my image." Jake's voice was steady. "A world shaped by fear is a world doomed to fall. Humanity's strength lies in its ability to adapt, to hope." With a final surge of strength, Jake overcame his foe, symbolizing the triumph of human spirit over tyranny. The High Council's grip shattered. As dawn broke, the survivors gathered, weary but victorious. Varin addressed the crowd. "This victory is a testament to unity, the power of diverse beings working toward a common goal." Jake looked around at humans, aliens, friends, and strangers bound by shared struggle. He realized the lesson this storm had taught them all. Life was fragile, the environment harsh, but the will to survive, to protect and to love was unstoppable. In the end, Earth was not just a planet to be conquered or feared. It was home, and home was worth fighting for. The end.